Hey YouTube, so today I am removing a seatbelt on the passenger side from a Aston Martin Vantage from 2007. This car is a Roadster and so the seatbelt mechanism is mounted down inside the battery compartment. The battery compartment is in a different position on the Roadster cars than it is on the coupes, and so I do have a video on how you remove the battery from behind the passenger seat on an Aston Martin Vantage Roadster. So if you're doing this job, check this out. Let's first talk about why I'm doing this. So I had an issue with my seatbelt. It won't retract. So when I pull the passenger seatbelt out, it comes out, but then it won't go back in again. So it seems like the spring mechanism has broken. So the idea is to take the seatbelt out, ship it off and repair it so that it comes back and it's the original seatbelt. You can't remove the actual belt itself, it's stitched in there, so you have to take off the whole mechanism, repair it. So that's the idea. So to do that, there's a couple of things we've got to do. One of them is remove that all the stuff from around the battery compartment, which is, as again I said, I've done that in a different video, and it's basically the same idea as removing the battery. You don't actually need to remove the battery, but you do need to remove all of the paneling around the battery behind the passenger seat so that you can get to the seatbelt mechanism, which I'll show you in just a second. The other thing we need to do is take into account that there's going to be some electrical connections, and we want to make sure the battery is disconnected before we disconnect those. So I haven't tested this theory, but I very much suspect that there's going to be a lot of sensors for the airbag warning, for the airbag system, and for the safety systems of the car, and they're going to get very upset if we start unplugging things while the battery is connected. And so we're going to need to disconnect the battery to make sure that the seatbelt mechanism electrical connector doesn't trigger a fault. I also have figured out that I'm going to have to remove the passenger seat. Turns out that's not that big of a deal, but I'll show you that bit next. But there's going to be probably some sensors underneath the seat, and I have found out the hard way in the past with modern cars that if you remove connectors from underneath the seat while the battery is on, it's going to again trigger an airbag warning system, because you've got sensors underneath the seat for the airbag systems. So we're going to have to make sure the battery is disconnected, right? That's very easy to do, very common first step for any repair. Problem is we can't do that as a first step, because then we won't be able to get the seat to slide backwards and forwards. It's an electrically sliding seat. And in order to get, there's 4 bolts holding the seat in, 2 at the back, 2 at the front. So in order to get to the back seats, I have to move the seat all the way forward. In order to get to the front bolts, I have to move the seat all the way back. And so we're going to remove the bolts to the seat first. Once we have access to them, we'll be able to then disconnect the battery. And then putting it all back together again will be a case of putting in 2 bolts, then making sure everything's connected, then connect the battery, slide the seat back, and do the other 2 bolts. So let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. Okay, so first off, problem we've got going on here is with the seatbelt mechanism, which is here. Now here's the back of the car. You can see that I've got the convertible top mechanism partially up so I could access this part here. Let me zoom out a little bit. I've got an oil canister just propped up on top here. May not be the best solution, but I needed to be able to hold the top up, and when the power is removed, the hydraulic struts lose power, and so it'll just slide down back on itself. So I needed to get to this area here, and I needed to have the top partially up to do that. What I've done is I've removed the back panels here. There's a lot of back panels. That is what they look like. In order to do that, there is bolts here. There's a screw inside here that holds this on. So the little cover over the speaker needs to be popped off a little bit so you can get to a screw, and that will, where did that just go? All right, I'll find that later. But that holds this panel on. You need to remove a shelf here. Let me just show you that shelf. This is what that shelf looks like. This goes behind the battery. These are all the back pieces that cover up the back of the car. So getting back inside here, I'm going to show you really quick what went wrong with my seatbelt system. There's the seatbelt. That's what we're going to remove. But when I took off the panels, I found this. I think this is pretty important to making my seatbelt go back inside again. This was a coiled up spring at some point, but now it is just all over the place. So that mechanism is going to have to come out. So right now, I've got everything out. I'm ready to pop the battery, and then I'll be able to disconnect this mechanism here. But the other thing you've got to do is get the other end of the seatbelt off. And the other end of the seatbelt connects to the seat here with a big hex bolt. I don't think I can get the hex bolt out without removing the seat. So I've removed the 2 back bolts. And then the other 2 bolts are, if I remember, these were 9 or 10 millimeters. There's one there, and there's one there, and I've actually got my socket on it right now, so I can definitely get these 2 out. So that's what we're talking about. It really isn't as bad of a job as it might look right now with everything disconnected. But this took me probably half an hour to get all the panels off. It might take you a little bit longer if you've not removed these panels before. But it is a perfectly doable job, and we should be able to get this seatbelt off and sent out for repairs. So hopefully this helps, and I'll see you in the next video. One little correction I want to make is that I actually don't need to remove the seat completely. So if we just want to take a look here, I have brought the seat and just kind of tilted it, and I have access to the bolt right there. So instead of removing the seat, I actually haven't removed any of the electrical connectors under the seat. I've just given myself access to that. And so you can kind of see the seat is not out, it is just tilted up. So I did disconnect all the 4 bolts that hold this thing in, but rather than pull it out completely, I tilted it and propped something under there so I can get to that bolt. So there's another little useful tip. Okay, so edit number 2. This was probably obvious, but I just want to point it out. This piece also has to come off. This is the seatbelt runner guide. Well, don't know if that's the official name, but seatbelt goes through this. The seatbelt won't come off without taking this out, or at least it won't come off unless you remove this screw here from the back. This screw goes through the middle and holds the seatbelt in place. Once we've got that screw out, we'll be able to pull the seatbelt back through the bottom of this and get it out. And then I'm going to put this thing back in again so I remember where I found it, but it just slots in to this metal holder here behind the passenger seat on the passenger side. So that's hopefully another useful bit of information.